How sloppy, incompetent, and corrupt is Donald Trump's DOJ? Just take a look at what happened in the Central District of California, where a federal judge dismissed a criminal indictment against somebody who ICE shot and claimed that the person they shot was the aggressor. And the judge cited just how sloppy and incompetent the DOJ in the Central District of California was, turning over discovery and documents late, missing documents and videos, and other things in the discovery. The judge described the conduct by the DOJ as essentially a train wreck that deprived the criminal defendant, who's now innocent, the case was dismissed with prejudice, depriving him of his constitutional rights. And it's not just any criminal defendant, it's a major social media influencer by the name of Carlitos Richard Parras. The Trump regime/ICE accused him of driving his car back and forth, hitting law enforcement cars that had boxed him in, causing the ICE agents to fire at him, and then some of the bullets ricocheted and hit the guy. I think this follows in line with other cases too, where ICE shot somebody, blamed the person they shot of engaging in criminal conduct. I think in all of those cases, they've all been dismissed at this point because ICE and Trump were lying. And when it came to the criminal process, where you've got to produce discovery and turn things over, they were not complying with the appropriate process. Also, this U.S. District Judge Fernando Holguin says that the defendant was deprived of access to counsel while being detained and the government's failure to comply with court deadlines. You know, an interesting insight that I have, being from Los Angeles and previously being a litigator who practiced in federal court, I know Judge Holguin. I know that he's a no-nonsense judge, a stickler for deadlines. And if you missed an expert disclosure or you missed anything, even by a few hours, and you asked for help, he was the kind of guy who would say, "Nope, so sorry, you're out of luck." And what's so fascinating to me is the idea that the DOJ has been turned into basically like Trump's sloppy law firms that miss deadlines. Remember how we've always covered Trump when he was a civil defendant or a plaintiff? And remember how we would report all the time like Trump blew another deadline? Now the DOJ is doing that. And it shouldn't be a surprise because Trump's picking people like Alina Habba, who's since been disqualified, to lead major divisions in the DOJ. And the Central District of California also had a guy who was like a pretender United States attorney for a little bit of time. But when you've got people like Halligan and Habba and these people who don't know what they're doing, this is the result. Especially when you also have the brain drain of thousands of DOJ lawyers and FBI agents leaving. Do y'all remember when we reported last week about one of these cases where the DOJ said they couldn't meet deadlines before the new year because they didn't have the technical expertise to delete files or produce files in a relatively simple discovery request? That's what you're dealing with here. Let me just show you how the local news reported this. Let's take a look at this clip. A federal judge has dismissed an indictment against TikTok streamer shot by a federal agent in October in South LA. That judge says Carlitos Ricardo Parras, who goes by Richard LA, was denied access to his lawyers while being held in detention. The judge also cites the government's failure to meet discovery deadlines, including timely release of body camera footage of the shooting. Agents accused Parras of ramming his car into their vehicles after they boxed him in, but video raises some serious questions about those claims. The judge dismissed the indictment with prejudice, meaning prosecutors cannot refile the same charges again, but Parras could remain in detention as his immigration case moves forward. Let's bring in Harry Litman from the Talking Feds YouTube channel. Harry, when you see the DOJ handling cases like this, you bring a unique perspective. Share it with us. Everything you say about the sloppiness and the inexplicable failure to meet deadlines is true, but I think it's clear from the opinion that there's a lot more than sloppiness going on. This has a little bit of the flavor of the Abrago Garcia case, trying to play both ends against the middle, the criminal process and the immigration process. Here's what happened. First, when the judge lays out the facts, he takes the facts as presented by the defendant. There's real doubts about the DOJ story. The story as presented by the judge, they box him in, he's trying to get out, they break the passenger window, they put a gun in there. That's deadly force. You may not do that unless you're threatened with deadly force, and they shoot him in the arm. And then, of course, as seems to happen every time there's this kind of encounter, he's the guy who winds up getting charged with assault on a federal officer. There's a lot of cynicism and disbelief even in the basic charges that come through in the judge's opinion. But there's another factor. They thought they could detain this guy, but the magistrate gave him bail. They were fit to be tied, and they took him immediately right away to an immigration detention center 2 hours away. And that's when the incredible deprivation of right to counsel begins. Their counsel is in Los Angeles. They're calling to arrange a phone call, and it's, "Oh, we're not doing that on Tuesdays," or "You have the wrong email." When they even show up, they say, "You can't come in here because you don't represent them on immigration." They were leveraging the whole immigration system to keep him from getting his right to counsel. And check out what they actually did. They said to the judge, "Well, we've got a way for him to get right to counsel, no problem. Reverse your detention decision, put him in jail in Los Angeles, then his attorneys will have no trouble meeting with him." The judge makes it clear toward the end of the opinion that they put him on this detention hold in a kind of reprisal for him having won his detention motion. They're warehousing him and using the immigration system to punish him and keep him from being able to get his trial together. It paints a vivid picture of both sloppiness and understatement and malice. It's a severe sanction to dismiss with prejudice, but the judge makes it clear it's deserving here. We'll see what their next move is. Do they try to appeal, or do they just go on the immigration side of things? Now it's been raised to a certain level of political focus, just like with Abrago. I think the courts will be vigilant about trying to keep the DOJ from just saying, "Well, here you go, wise guy, now we'll deport you." This is a situation where the judge thinks they just went after him in order to punish him for winning his detention motion. The bottom line is no one is pointing a gun to the head of the DOJ saying you need to file these cases. They've made the decision, and then they're shocked that a criminal defendant hires competent lawyers to go through the motions. In response, the Trump DOJ does the equivalent of legal malpractice, missing deadlines, not turning things over. We entrust the DOJ with this sacred duty, and when they can't even back up what they're doing and handle it in such a sloppy way, a federal judge has no choice but to dismiss it with prejudice. The reputation of the DOJ has been tarnished. You're so right, and it's heartbreaking. As a U.S. attorney, anytime an agent in the field thinks somebody assaulted them, you get huge pressure to back up the agent. But it's all contingent on it having been on the up and up. Now it's really turned on its head, because what seems to be happening is these rogue agents break the law, use excessive force, and then say it was all this guy's fault. This judge clearly didn't believe the narrative that this guy was the bad guy and the aggressor. And that's a different and bad day for the Department of Justice. The wages of having been not just sloppy, but squirrely and dishonest for many months since January 2025. Everybody hit subscribe to Harry Litman's YouTube channel, Talking Feds. Support independent media. Let's keep growing together. So that's a look at how sloppy, incompetent, and corrupt Donald Trump's DOJ is. Just take a look at what happened in the Central District of California, where a federal judge dismissed a criminal indictment against somebody who ICE shot and claimed that the person they shot was the aggressor.